Our continuation for Module 5 is Objective 5.3, which is Interpreting Split Line Notes. This is very historical, and but if you work out in the rural areas, anywhere that has some old monumentation, these split line notes can be actually very useful. So when we talk about split line notes, it's actually the original township field notes. So yes, your field notes, make sure that you keep them very tidy, make sure they're readable, make sure that, that you don't like white out anything or stuff like that, because they are actually considered like legal documents and they are held on to forever. So, so these are the original field notes that you would get. What each of these split line notes do is they define the features for each section boundary. So all the way around each section boundary, you're going to find a special set of notes for it. It has all the legal information for the boundary and it has all the land features, so it allows you to help landmark a little bit. So here's an example. So here's just kind of a quick overview as to what you're seeing, and then I'm going to show a couple more examples outside of this. But it's called a split line because this middle center is imaginary. So it's actually an infinitely small line, and all they're doing is trying to show what the measurements are along that boundary. So it's kind of like a topographic survey in one direction. So they measured out like from 0 chains, because it was all in chains, all the way up to 80 chains. So remember, that's all about chains here. And so it starts at 0, goes up, and it tells you where these different features, land features, are found. So for example, there's this pond. It says grassy pond. The grassy pond is found at 6 chains across, like from here to there, to the line. Then we go up to 40, which is the middle of the section. And then we go up and, oh, here's this little, it says it's a dry, basically a dry river. It's always hard when it's digitized like that. But so this is at 50, 56 maybe. So 50 something. And then it goes up to 70 where we have a slope. Well, we see the bottom of the slope is 70 and the top. Here is your hatching. So that's why it's so important to know it, bottom and top. And then we have 80, which is at the top here. So that is along the line, the center, and this gap is not the road. It all entirely is just a empty space for you to write. That's all it is. So they always started at the bottom of the page and went up, and that is known as the course. So the course starts at the bottom and goes to the top, and it tells us at the top of the page what direction that is. So for example, here the course is south. So this is actually the north side of the page, and this is the south side of the page. So sometimes it takes a little bit of twisting it around and trying to get your head oriented around what it is. So the example, the boundary line is in the east boundary. So it says it's in the east boundary. How do I know that? Because of the statement up here. So it says Township 28, Range 2, west of the 5th meridian, east boundary of section 24, course south. So you have to read the top. And in this one's a little challenging to read, but that's what it says, is east, because it doesn't look like an S or an N, so, or even a W, so it has to be an east, and this is south. Something to be cautious of is sometimes the S looks like a 5, so if it does look like a 5, then make sure it's still a south, not a 5. Then the date of this happening is all on the bottom here, so this was 1894 for this one. You'll see the sections on either side. They'll be written out. So here's 19, and here's 24. Okay. You have to remember the way that it counts, because if you are going down between two townships, you're going along a line between the townships, then suddenly your section numbers seem out of whack because they're jumping large values. So for example, this one, 24 and 19, jump quite a bit. So that's an example of where the township value is, that we're going down a township line instead. So here they would also write in the type of ground that they're seeing. So we see rolling prairie or level prairie. So what it says, rolling prairie means that it has some small hills in it. Level prairie means it's flat. It has the different features like the little dry bed and then the little pond here. You also see trees, important trees that are close by. Those will be added in. You also see the type of soil. So here we have dark loam and clay. And then, dark loam and clay and dark loam and clay. They used to have to dig holes, and you would dig and find out, a certain amount of depth and figure out what kind of soil it is. So you had to be able to identify soil back then as well, on top of the surveying stuff. And then there is also classes. So the class represents how good the prairie is to do farming. So that is it's the quality of soil for agriculture. So you would use that class and for sales, the sales of the land, and making a point to be able to say, hey, well, I can give you this class and you will have a class 1 and I'm going to charge you more because it's better quality soil. So to do this and the slideshow, let's look at the next one here that I've got. So when you download split line notes from Spin, I will be showing you guys eventually how to do that here in this class. You're going to get a little booklet of the field notes of the area that you were working in. So here's the name of the guy who did the surveying and the date it started and the day it ended, and it's in 1902. So I'm going to go flip through a little bit here just so I can get to some more interesting pages. Here we have more information. So this is down by Bazzano. So I just chose it because it was some unique ground there. So in here we can see that we've got Township 2, Range 8, west of the 4th meridian. The east, he attempted to say east because it doesn't look like any other value. East boundary of section 13. Course is south, okay? And the nice fancy curly writing. So we have lots of slope in here. You can see the hatchers that have been put in. You can see that these are going up and downhill. So this is going down, and this goes down, down, and then down, and down. So there's a little plateau in here. So there's a loam here. Sometimes this is really hard to read. It's clay. The biggest issue that you may find is if you have not been taught cursive writing, that you may have challenges reading some of this because it is all in cursive. Sometimes you'll come across the odd guy who wrote it in printing. For the most part, it is in cursive. So here we have poplar. That's what it says is poplar. It's the type of ground here. I'm not quite sure if that says very rough or very dry, something like that. And then we have all the measurements all the way starting down here. So this part down here this is going south. So this is my north. And then we have the south up here. You can see the road here. There was a road at that time when he did the survey, and it is one chain, 80 to 81. And then down here we have our Milk River. So if you've ever heard of Milk River, that's an area that we're looking at there. So our class is 3, so it's your agricultural kind, and it shows, oh, I found there's IP pits. So that they found some monuments, so they identified those right away. So that's written on there. Angles of survey and distances to different features. They've got that written in here. So there's all kinds of stuff going on in these field notes. So again, just looking at that simplicity, found pits here from a previous surveyor. You can see all the unique landscape in the area that's showing edges, and then there's poplar bush. That's what that says. And yeah, so this is what the notes look like. I would, if you had a chance to go through, here's Rolling Prairie. You take a look. You can look at some of the examples that I have and rewatch this video if you like. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. But the best part about this is that your field notes are going to be like this. You're going to have somebody sitting here trying to figure out what the heck you wrote on, December 23rd of 2020, and somebody's going to be like, what were they writing there? I'm trying to figure this out, but what's important is the measurements. So that's just something to keep in mind as you go through. All right, let's go back to the slideshow, and I'm pretty much have to go from the beginning here. Swap. And then, let's see, maybe I can do it this way. I figured out a trick. Township Plots. All right, so that is split line notes. So the next subject is Township Plats. So Township Plats show features of the township. So this is a map that shows all the sections. It shows where all the land features are. It shows very much similar to the split line notes, except the split line notes are the original field notes. The township plats are now the registered plan of the area. And the split line notes only show the boundary. They don't actually go into it. But this takes like all of those boundaries and puts it all together into one big map, which is really cool. So this one shows us distances, areas, and angles of the sections. It shows land features at the time of the survey. It shows dates, registration, name of surveyors, which we talked about in the previous video. So we have our plat. What's important here? First of all, Township 25, Range 24, west of the 4th meridian. That is where this is located. So if you want to look it up, you can certainly see if you can find out where that is. At the top, you have your scale. You can see that it is a written scale, and it says 40 chains to an inch. Okay, so it's written out. It has specific values to it. So you would have to do any conversions with it if you plan on doing any math. And then we have a scale bar for that general quick knowledge of what the size would be. Now as we go down, so we see hatchers. That is not grass, it is hatchers. So therefore we're showing slopes, so it always shows the slope of the ground. We also see different kinds of land formations. So we have rolling prairie, broken, and hilly. And then we have section numbers. Go in there. Then on the bottom here, I've kind of zoomed in a little bit, but this little section here tells us how much area is in for the land, tells us the roads, the area of roads in acres, and the amount of water that's available in a number of acres, and the total area of the entire township. And then we have our stamp of approval, which gives us the registration date of the township. Again, very important if you need to know where your monuments are. So remembering where the location of the monuments are, and that after 1918 that there is monuments along the blind lines now. That is another important thing. So that's why that's so important. And then we have the name of the surveyor and the date of the survey. You might have many of them that are listed because there was lots of them that worked on it and some of them not so much. So in here, some of the things to point out, for example, Prickly Pear Creek kind of dies. You see nothing in here. So we can't make any real estimation as to what's going on there. But if you're asked how many water bodies are on this, Prickly Pear Creek goes into this one here, right? So it connects to there, and it must split off into this one, which is a Crowfoot Creek, I think. So we have actually two water bodies because Prickly Pear Creek is still Prickly Pear Creek, right? So we just don't know what's going on in this situation. They didn't identify it when they were doing the survey. So, so there's two water bodies there. And then wherever it says that there is a lake, so there's an alkaline lake, so there is a water body there, so there's three. And then there's a slough over here. Now what slough means is basically a pond. It's a little like low-lying area of the prairies that has water in it. And so a lot of the times that's where you see like birds going, and people will go put fish in there and go fishing and all kinds of fun stuff. So it has lots of leeches, which is like things that attach to you. Not all of them, but just some of them. So anybody who's ever gone swimming in a slough knows exactly what I'm talking about. So, but if you've never seen the word, it's spelled S-L-O-U-G-H, and that's a slough. And so you might see words such as coulee or ravine. Those are just like little valleys between two sharper edges. These are words that are not common right across Canada. They're actually very specific to the prairies. You won't hear the word slough in like Newfoundland or well, not Quebec, but even like BC. They don't use the word slough that often. So it is very particular to here. So if there's any words that come up, feel free to post that, and somebody will answer you and tell you what it is and explain it. Alkaline refers to acidity, right? So the acidity of it, which is interesting. Okay, so that is a township plat. That's the information that you're going to find on it. Oh, you also see these values up here. So you'll see where they're located. So here's like 39.92. So that is how many chains. And then you'll see double apostrophe. This double apostrophe means it's the same as the previous one. So you'll usually see, for example, it says 39.92 chains, and there's double apostrophes all the way across, and then it says 39.92. And then here's 39.93 and then 39.94. So because of that, we know that all of these in the middle are 39.92, and then 39.93 and 39.94. And the same goes along here and along here. You don't see the values going north, south. They don't include those in the township plats. So that's important for knowing those distances. There's no angles that are posted in here, so they're assumed to be true north. Okay, so moving on to the last objective is subdivision right-of-way and condo plans. So subdivision plans, there's the split line notes were the original, right? So they're like the original data that was out there and placed out on the land. Then we have township plats, which cover a very large area of land. And then we have subdivision plans. So those come in like next in the hierarchy. So subdivision plans show the boundaries of blocks and land parcels that we are working with. So a block, a parcel, a lot, that's what the subdivision plans are indicating. They represent the visualization of several legal descriptions. So a lot number, a block number, and a plan number. Generally in the city, if you buy a house in the city, it's going to have a lot number, which is not your street address, a block number as to where it was located, and then the plan that is cataloged. All these subdivision plans include angles and distances. They do not necessarily have the topography in them. So they're often just two-dimensional views of the land. So here, for example, is a subdivision plan older than 1972. So this is the cataloging number. This is 8237HK. Those numbers are a cataloging system that they had in place at the time. We don't use it anymore, but you can identify it by looking at it. There are lots and lots of plans in the city they use for that. Smaller towns, they use that. And then the parcels, plan showing parcels B and C. So this is what work they did. They separated up this land, might have been from parcel A, and then separated it up from B and C as separate parcels. And it may not have been from parcel A, it may have been from another parcel as well. You would find that as you read through here. Then we have like the scale. So 1 inch equals 200 feet. So that's also important to note because there's your mathematics that you can use. And then when we look over here, we have double lines. So these double lines are the new boundaries, like identifying the area that they put in. If they found if they found a post, there is a black dot. So parcel A was on its own before. So here you can see 2 black dots in the corner. That means, hey, there was a monument here already and we used it. Then they placed monuments, which are the ones that have the open circles. So they put those in, they're the ones who pounded it into the ground, and that is now legal. It's considered a legal boundary where those are. The broken lines, so this one's interesting because it's got broken lines over here. And it's indicating that it's not to scale, right? So it means that there was a big jump from like the center of this section to that area, and same with here. So they did a full survey all the way around to show the full section, because I guess this is probably a rural area that they were separating up. And so they were showing the full section of land, but they didn't need to show all the empty space in between, so they used these these like little lightning bolts to do that. Then the number of plan is this catalog number, which I talked about. So the old plan is often a lighter shade in the background. So if you look carefully, you're going to see that there is something written occasionally behind it. Now, I'm not going to zoom in here, but some of these, for example, here it says 8271 HP, and this was a map from before, so it was handwritten on there saying that it's there. We also have this older one, 2572 JK, and then the 2588 HH. So these are older plans that you would use to go out and have them in the field. So you'd have to reference those when you're doing your doing it. So we don't see a lighter plan in the background in this one, and that's okay. So the distances are in feet, angles are in quadrant bearings. So if we were to zoom into this, we would see that there are values that are written around these here. So here is a, let's say that was 1,200 or 200 feet, I think is about 200 feet. So if we take the 200 feet, then that is telling us from here to here, that is what that distance is. I'm not sure if that's actually what it says because, of course, I can't zoom in when I'm on a PowerPoint. So you would read that, you would see, okay, it's in feet. It has that 1 apostrophe at the end, so that's what we're looking for. And then the angles. So here, this one says like north, and it's got a number, and it says east. So that means that it has an angle from here to here based on my quadrant bearing. So there's north that's going straight up. Here's my north pointing up. So, and this has a slight angle into the northeast quadrant. I will be going over quadrant bearings and how to calculate those, and same with the coordinate systems in general and how to get angles from those as well in a future lecture. So you'll see that all the way across. Always watch that it is in, knowing that the angles are in quadrant bearings, know that S often looks like 5. So be careful with that. So make sure that, okay, it says S, that it means, or it says, it looks like a 500 or a 5-1. It's actually S. You can't have like 500 degrees, right? So that doesn't work. So just really watch that you're being careful with that. Because that's a common mistake, is to mistake that S for a 5. So since then, though, we've updated newer plans. So the newer plans now use computers because they didn't have computers really for doing this before. So they had typewriters back in the 70s. So the title of the plan is actually representative of the year it was registered. So they changed it so that it would actually make some common sense. So the first two numbers is the year. So here, I know that has the one there. Ignore that one. Ignore this number. I like using this one because it makes it really confusing. So 01 means that it was registered in 2001. Okay, this one just gives us an extra value so that it, once I hit, you know, 10,000, then it gives me an extra number to work with. Then using that, so we've got our year and then cataloging number after. This 1986 has nothing to do with the year. It's merely just the number of the plan. Okay, so only the first two. So if it says 97-1, that means it was made in 1997, and that was when it was registered. So it's always the first two numbers. Then we have bold lines. The bold lines indicate the new boundaries. Again, the little round, the actual filled in bubbles are the ones that they placed. Anything that is open is considered that it was already there. So right here, for example, see that that was already there, and some in there. So the old lot number is often in faded writing in the background. Now it's going to be very hard for you to see here, but if you look really carefully, there is actually like a faded number right behind here, and that is it representing the old plan that it is now replacing. So this plan is replacing an old plan that was there. And I actually think it says lot 1 and then 97, 1, 12, 10 maybe. Because it'd be the same as this, it would have been lot 1 in that plan. The distances here are in meters. Okay, so now we moved into the metric system, so we use meters, and the angles are actually in azimuths, so we're not dealing with quadrant bearings anymore. So this is, if you're having to look at two different plans and trying to put them together to do your survey, you need to do those conversions. And that's why unit conversions are so important in this class. Then we have terminology. So subdivide versus subdivision. Subdivide, the old lot has been changed. Okay. Subdivision are the new lots that are created. So this ending is actually really important. So if I say how many, which lot was subdivided, then you would say lot 1 in this case, because lot 1 was the old lot. What are the new subdivisions? Lot 3 and 4 are the subdivisions. Okay, how many subdivisions are in this plan? There's 2, because 2 of them were created. Okay, so I want you to be cautious about that, right? Some other things on here, you'll see we have road plans, we have, so that gives us road numbers that we can look up. We have other parcels surrounding it. We have blocks, so there's a block value that is being shown here. So blocks is generally speaking in hierarchy. The biggest is the township plan, then we go to the subdivision plan. Blocks comes next, then parcels and lots. Okay, so that's the hierarchy. Right-of-way plans tell us areas that we have limited or different legal rights. So for example, drainage right-of-ways have a place for water to flow. Utility right-of-ways have a place for utilities to go through. Road right-of-ways have a place for road access. And there are other kinds of, there's access right-of-ways. There's all kinds of stuff that can come up as right-of-ways. So this example here is showing this right-of-way, and this is an access right-of-way. So access means probably that this lot here, there's a road plan here, but maybe there's no road there. Or maybe the road is really difficult to get onto, or maybe is not really maintained. It could be anything. So in order for them to access this lot 3, they had to put in an access road so that this lot could be accessed. So that means that lot 4 still technically owns that property because there is the property pins. It just means that they can't build something in that area. They can't go and put a garage right here on the edge of this. because otherwise these people can't access this. So when you go to buy a house, be very cautious that you look for your right-of-ways and understand what you can and cannot do. You may not be able to put a garage where you think you want to put it. You may not be able to put a shed somewhere, like a really large shed or a playground, or maybe you are looking to put in a concrete flower bed. You may not be allowed to do that. You may not be allowed to build out your deck as big as you want it. So all of that is because of these right-of-way plans. So these are legal plans and they're put in a place for a reason. They're not just there to be inconvenient. So the title for this, so you'll see it's 011-1987. So the 01 is still the year that it was registered, and it's usually the one after or a couple after the registered subdivision plan. So if you have 5 different right-of-ways in that area, you're going to have like your registered subdivision plan, and then you're going to have all of the different plans after that are in consecutive order. They're not going to jump around in numbers. They'll keep them together to make sense. The next one is the last one is condo plans. So condo plans is for condominiums. Condominiums are a very unique type of property ownership, just because you own some property that you don't actually live on. So there's something called common property, and common property in this case is Unit 51. So you come in on your road and you come in here and you own a portion of that. So it's kind of a really unique mentality about the condo plans. You own your unit, some own it, you have some ownership in condos owns the backyard and the building. Some of them do not. So a bareland condo, actually, bareland, I'm going to cover this in the next slide, but a bareland condo, you own the yard and possibly the building itself. Conventional means that you only own the inside of the building, and that's it. Okay, so those are kind of the 2 normal condos that we see in this area. So this plan was created in 2004, so we can see that number there. And there's the shares. So we have how many shares of this particular plan and unit has this many shares of the common property, right? So again, it's going to show that information. So on the first page of the condo plan, you're going to see the boundary set out for that area of the condo. So here we have a bunch of townhouses. These are conventional townhouses. And then we have, they decided to adjust the road while they were at it, so they had to adjust the boundary. So you can see that they put in a little road change in there as well. So in condos, so there's that for the first page, and as I have a note over here, the condos have units rather than parcels or lots. So the units, generally speaking, are smaller than a lot. So if you're looking for really small, you go to condo unit. And then the common property is the area that all residents use. So even if you live in like a condo building where you're on top of one another, your common property is the hallways or the entrance to the building. So all of that is common property, but it is registered as its own unit. So you'll see up here that there are 5 sheets with this condo plan. It's all going to be the same number. It just means that there's some pages that are associated with it. So this first page, like I said, shows me the boundary and kind of gives me an idea of exactly how many units are there. But then I go to the next page, and all of the following pages kind of follow the same idea. So every unit is identified, and they show the measurements for the building on the inside. So here, because I have townhouses, they have 3 levels. So you can see Unit 19, Unit 19, Unit 19, and here are the 3 levels showing here. This is a cross section in the vertical of the condo building. So we don't have any angles in here, but we have all of the measurements on the inside, and then here we're told the height. So now I can tell you how high my building is on the inside. And the reason that's important is because you do actually own from floor to ceiling in that condo building. So it is important to know that. That's important to know. So if I do ask you something like how tall is a condo, or how much air, like how much elevation, not so much elevation, but how high is your condo, you can just go and take a look at these and add them up, and there you've got that. I will negate the fact that you don't know how thick the floor is. That's not important, because in this particular type of condo, you don't own the floor. You only own the airspace in there and anything that's in there. So here's the two types of condos, which I just mentioned before. We have conventional, where the owner owns what's inside the building, and then we've got the bare land, which is where there's a yard or patio, and the building itself, it can be owned. So something to keep in mind there. So the things that I've covered here are split line notes, township plats, subdivision plans, condo plans, and right-of-way plans. So there's lots of different types of plans that you'll be looking at. They're all in different units. They're all done a little bit differently, but they all have their place, and they're all important in their own way. So you'll be able to do this will all be related to the assignments. So take your time with the assignment. Make sure you're reading the information in the question. So read the question is really important. So that's everything for Module 5, and we will be back at it and back at math for Module 6.